That's the thing different about analogic, so science-based.
We are so excited to be bringing you some semi-live content.
Well, there's frost seeding in a nutshell.
Improving your farms, there's nothing you can't do with the Vail equipment like this right here. Hey everyone, Lee Lakosky here. Welcome to our first YouTube show of our series we're doing in the summer. You know, on the show, we only have 22 minutes to show a hunt, but there's so much that goes into it behind the scenes, and that's kind of the stuff that, you know, so many people in seminars and everything else want to know about. So we're gonna do a series over the whole summer of all our strategies, planting strategies, hunting strategies. And like right now, I already have a pretty good idea of what deer we're gonna be hunting next year. And of course, this food plot that we're standing in right now will probably play a pretty key role in what happens this fall. We do stuff for deer every single day, and we started filming for this, you know, back several months ago when we were frost seeding this field right here. We just stepped in it right now. But let me take you back a couple months ago when we first started our frost seeding process on that. Like I said, the weather's been a little bit crazy on it, but we'll show you the process that we used and our thoughts behind it. And here we go, back to March.
Okay, we're kicking off this series here with a little bit of frost seeding. And really my strategy is I have several deer that are 5 years old. And those are the ones I target. I like to get them to 6 or 7. You know, sometimes you wait at 5, they blow up where you're like, hey, this deer is so big, I'm totally happy with them. But other deer, you know, they were like this one in particular. At 4 years old, he had side-by-side 3s and 4s. This year at 5, he didn't split one of the sides on the 3 or the 4, but you know he's got it in him. So those are the deer that we're kind of targeting. Like at 6, they should really blow, and that's kind of what happened to a deer that Tiffany shot last year. At 5, he went down, and then at 6, he went back up bigger than he'd ever been. But our strategy is to take those deer on all of our farms, and okay, which deer are we going to be targeting? It's not always absolute. There's ones that you think these are the ones you're going to be targeting, but a lot of times, you know, they turn out they break something off, or they don't grow as big as you think. And then there's some that maybe are 4 years old that just blow it huge. So you don't know, but at least I have some deer in my mind that, okay, I'm going to target these deer. And this happens to be a deer on this farm, on this field. It's the same exact scenario as a buck out of the big brow tine 9 a couple years ago. I shot right out of this tree stand right on this field, exact same spot, and we did the same thing for him that we're doing for the side-by-side 3s. So number one, right now, I took this field last year and I planted in wheat and clover, and we had such a dry fall last year where it was, you know, the wheat came up and the clover a little bit, but it wasn't the best. You can see right now the deer have just mowed it right down to nothing, and it was basically like that last fall too, because we didn't get the rain to really shoot everything up. So what I'm doing right now is I'm frost seeding, and we got a cold enough morning this morning that it's frozen up. We probably could have brought the tractor in here. I have a tractor with a spreader on it, and did this a lot faster. And I just didn't want to, you know, put any ruts in this because it's already planted in clover from last year. I just want to help it along and make sure that we get a perfect stand here, because we're going to be hunting a deer likely out of that tree stand right there, and hopefully he's going to be big. And there's a couple other big deer up here as well that were here last year, so there's at least 2 that will be 6 and a couple that will be 5 that could be really big. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk over there. Since this one's only like a half an acre right here, I'm going to just walk over it and just overseed all this. And I just like to get this on this frosted up ground right now. It should thaw out today a little bit and start sinking that seed. All you need is good seed soil contact, just half of that clover seed stuck in the mud, and that's going to be perfect growing conditions for this. So what I'm going to do is hit it with the hand one. We get a bunch of rain and stuff tomorrow and freeze it back up again on the weekend, but that'll at least give me the weekend to go hit some other fields. But this is one that I really need this field to be successful this year. I just want to make sure that I got plenty of seed on here and hits all this early rain. We got a beautiful clover field in here because we have several deer we could be targeting. I want to keep these deer as healthy as I can right now, this time of year. Going into the summer, you want it right as soon as they shed. I want to start pumping minerals into them, pumping nutrition into them. I just don't want them, using their fat reserves. I want to just get them as healthy as we possibly can to put on the best racks they can and to keep them alive. You lose so many deer to who knows what. When you go shed hunting, you just find deer dead all the time. You don't know what they died from, and that's what we're just trying to keep them as healthy as possible. So I'm really focusing on deer right now, not specifically fields or farms. I'm looking at what deer do I want to hunt, do I think is going to be big next year. It's not always the case, but these are the ones I think I'm going to. I'm going to concentrate on this food plot. This is where he's lived his whole life. I'm going to concentrate on getting analogics, minerals out, feed out. I want to do everything I can to hold that deer here. I don't want to lose them. I want to keep them right here and keep them healthy. So that's what we're doing on this field. And we have 100 other ones like it, but this is just the start. All right, well, there's frost seeding in a nutshell. One down and about 50 more fields to go, but it's kind of the basics of it. Why we do it. If you have any questions, just write in the comments. I'll try to get back to everybody if any other questions that we didn't touch on in the video. And just make sure you subscribe here and just keep coming back, because we'll be doing stuff every single day for deer, and we'll be putting out as much information as we can to hopefully make your farm better.
We're going through this first field right here, and you'll see this probably a lot through the summer, because this is going to be a very important spot, like I said. But if you look in here, it has all the wheat coming up and some weeds and stuff, but you can see all the clovers in here. There's a bunch of like more mature clover and soinfane and stuff that was in our holy clover last year that's up far enough that you can actually spray like Imox or some things on this to kind of kill these weeds and get the weed out of here. But there's also all the very small little clover that's just coming up from where we frost seeded. And some of that stuff, you just want to be careful with that. You don't want to damage that with chemicals. So what I probably do now is just maybe mow off this wheat. And it's been such a dry and cold. It's been kind of a weird spring here. So we finally got some rain, and that's why we're not in the tractors right now. Kind of checking out some of these fields before I get in there. But this right now, I like to cut this wheat and let it sit on top, because it has been so dry, and it kind of holds that moisture in. Like in the mornings, you get dew and stuff on it. And if we didn't get this rain, I would just leave this wheat grow. Sometimes I let the wheat grow right up to the whole year, and then it'll protect all that clover underneath from the hot sun and heat and everything else, and holds moisture in there. And then in the fall, I'll mow it off, and you'll have just a beautiful clover field in there. This is kind of taking the place, and you kind of want the wheat in there to kind of shelter out some of the weeds. But you can see they ate so much of the wheat down. It's not that thick. You see the weeds coming in on this, but we'll save this field. I have a feeling that it'll look a lot different this fall. Like I said, it looks a little bit like a mess now, but once we mow this and all that new clover starts coming up, it's really late because we had really no rain. The whole month of April, it's usually your wettest month. We had like 6/10 the whole month of April, but we just got like 1.5 inches last couple of days. So now all this new frost seeding clover is starting to pop up. And if we get some more rain here, like we're supposed to later this week, we'll have all that come in, and this should look a lot different this fall. But that's the whole point of this YouTube series. We're going to be going over all kinds of different strategies and things. Like I said, it's not like you hop in a deer stand in October and just magically a big one appears. It's a lot of steps and a lot of years of work and following these deer and trying to figure out how to hunt them each year. And that's what we're doing right now. We're figuring out strategy on some of these deer that we may or may not be hunting. So it's like I have an idea, so you never know exactly, because there's some deer that maybe weren't even really on your radar last year, and this year they'll just blow and they'll put on 30 inches, and some of them that you think are going to be big, like these two that I have in particular that are up on this end of the farm, they may do nothing. They may go backward. So you never know until you get to July and stuff, kind of see what they're doing, but you still have a pretty good idea of what they're going to look like. So right now I'm going to probably mow off this wheat and try to take care of these weeds here pretty soon, and just kind of see how this frost seeding comes in. We put it on pretty heavy, and like I said, it just sat there because we didn't have any rain. But now that we did, you start seeing all that little bits of clover coming in, and I want to make sure that I get fertilizer on this, do everything I possibly can to this field to make sure that this fall no matter what, this is gonna be a beautiful field. And if for some reason we get droughts or whatever and the clover doesn't make it, we'll put it into something else. But every week we're working on deer, whether it be hinge cutting, planting, chemicals, and what we're using for fertilizers and weed control, and of course, deer strategy, which is like my favorite. I just love these things. It's like a big puzzle, and there's so much to it. And we're just gonna walk you each step of the way. We're gonna walk you through it, and hopefully by this fall, we'll have some of these deer dialed in. But for now, let's get that big tree off our field that fell with all the rain, and let's get this weed out of here. Take a look at this. We just got one more pass left, and this is perfect. You can see how these weeds here are gonna still give that clover underneath some cover, from sunlight and everything, to keep that moisture coming up in there to get that clover to release out of there and grow. And you come back in a week from now, you're gonna see that clover is through all these weeds, and all the weeds and wheat did its job. Now, when you look at these varieties of clover that we use in the analogics mix, it's not just that, hey, you take 5 varieties and, throw them all together and just throw it out there. We grew every one of these varieties of clover, including the soyfane, by themselves. And of course, we checked them to see which ones they liked, and the drought resistance and all those kind of things that you want to have. Make sure that they're varieties you'd want to have in your food plots. But the biggest thing that I was looking at was that some of these varieties grew at different rates, how soon they matured. So if you just had one variety, say you take an Alside clover, and you put that in there, and you get a rain and heat on it, and boom, the whole field is up, it's headed out, it's stemmy, it doesn't have the palatability to deer, and they'll leave your field until you get out there and mow it. So what we did, we chose a bunch of different varieties that matured at different rates. So when one was mature, maybe that one was stemmy, they weren't eating that one, the next one was coming up. And after that one, the next one was coming up. And after that one, the next one was coming up. So if you get that rain and heat like we have right now, and if you can't get out to mow your clover right away when it heads out, you still have a lot of time. Your deer will never leave that, because there'll always be a variety in here that's still palatable to them. It still has their high protein levels and things like that. So that's, every one of the seed blends that we have at Analogics, we put a lot of thought into them. It wasn't, hey, let's just find something that'll look green and throw it in a bag. Every one of these seeds that's in every bag of Analogics, we grew every single one of them on their own and picked the mixes accordingly. And you'll see that. Now that we just kind of released this clover underneath, you look underneath there, you can see all the clover in there, and these weeds and wheat did its job. It protected that clover through the drought month of April, which is normally our wettest month. You really wouldn't have that problem, but you just never know when it's going to happen. So if we didn't get the rain and it was super hot, we wouldn't have even mowed this. Like I said, I would have let this just cover this clover up. But now that we got rain and we finally started getting some heat, but it's not going to be 90s or 100 or anything like that. It's just in the 70s. That's the perfect time to cut off these cover crops and release that clover. So right now you see a lot of it, even my small stuff out here. You see the little young ones they're already up like this. The ones from last year are up like this, but now opening that canopy up, get that sun in there, these things are gonna explode right through this, and this should be a beautiful field. Well, there was kind of frost seeding and one of my pet projects in that episode, but we're just pulling out all of our Vail implements here. And this isn't all of them. I still have the saw and a mulcher, and they were pulling them all out. We use like every one of these in so many projects around here, and you'll start seeing in some of these episodes that are coming up some of the projects that we use these for and how fast and efficient you can do it with these Vail products. Like the one we just tackled, the big CRP piece back behind our house here, it literally would have been an entire summer trying to get that stuff out without the Vail tools, and literally Ed came over and helped me. We did it in 3 days. But here's some of the Vail implements I have, and these are some that Ed was kind enough to bring over and let me borrow. Like so many times, like our ditches out in front, like along our house here, and things that you can't get a mulcher in with a skid steer because you'd be tipping it over sideways. This mower is for our mini excavator. So you can get it on, you can get stuff high. So many times, like we have the saw that we use to cut along our field edges and stuff so you don't rip the mirrors off your tractors and stuff when you're going, but some of those are just too high to get to. So with this one, you can either get the trees and back them off, you know, cut them back way up high and get your ditches and things. So it's one of those pieces of equipment that you really can't do with something else. So it's awesome to have that. So this is one of my mowers here. You know, it's got a big wide deck. It can take out trees, you know, the size of your arm. So, but I mostly use this for like smaller stuff, you're clearing stuff that doesn't have like any bigger trees. They're bigger ones. We have the disc mulcher that we used already this whole spring to clear out most of our CRP things, but this thing works great if you don't let it get too far gone like we have to use the mulchers. And of course, this is just like a land plane. We use it for grading our driveways and everything, especially like in food plots. When you're done, like you start taking the grapples and stuff and pulling out stumps, and every time we open up new food plots, we use this a ton. See the forks on the edges there? So many times you put that down and you drag that backward and you pull out all the roots and stuff and even debris that's left on your field, and then you can smooth it out with that. So anytime we do new food plots without dozers, when we just use our Vail equipment, this is the last step on it. So at the end, it has nice grooves in it that water and seed can get into those grooves and get rid of all the roots and stuff. Of course, this is our drum mulcher. We use this a ton too this whole spring. This is like perfect for, you know, any size trees really. I mean, we have, you know, stumps. If you're doing like food plots, it's so hard. You know, most of the time in the timber, you want to put them in there, there's big trees in there. And so you see so many people's food plots and it looks pretty, you know, when you do like a half-acre food plot or something and have these trees in the middle, but it's really not what you want, because any of those trees, all the roots go out and they zap all the moisture and all the nutrients. So you'll never get anything to grow good around them. And for me, if you have a small food plot, you want to maximize the food that's in it. So I always try to take those trees out. If they're just too big, then you have to go around them. But with a mulch like this, I can take the saw, like a tree this big around, I can cut that tree off, cut it into pieces, grab it with a grapple like this, pick all the pieces out of there, take this drum mulcher, I can mulch any size stump right down 8 inches underground. I can plant right over the top of it. So with this mulch, with the disc mulcher and the drum mulcher, there isn't anything I can't do as far as putting in food plots. Of course, this is my grapple. You cut down those big trees like we're talking about. You can cut them down with the saw, push them over, cut them into chunks. These, you can pick them up, move them. Work great for when we cut down like tons of cedars and get all that debris. And like even on our project up here where we had just so many tree tops of all those locust trees with all the thorns. You want to start grabbing all that stuff with your hands and moving that stuff by hand, even throwing it on a trailer to get it out of there. Trust me, you need a suit of armor to get through that stuff. But when you have something like this, pick it all up, grab it, move it off the field. There's really nothing you can't do as far as food plots, land management, improving your farms. There's nothing you can't do with the Vail equipment like this right here. Every Monday, we're gonna be dropping a new episode for you to look at, and you're gonna see every one of these pieces of equipment from Vail. You'll see them go to work, and you'll see what the kind of job you can do with these things. So really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to make any comments. If you have any questions, anything you guys wanna see that maybe we need to elaborate on more or anything like that, just let us know. We're here to help. For me, my passion is just obviously land and land management and deer management and things like that. So I get up in the morning, every morning, and do something for deer and for our farms and things like that. So there's really nothing that I haven't thought about or haven't done already. So any questions or something we didn't cover, make sure you ask and we'll make sure to get it out to you.